Part of my faith journey restarted in 2020. At the end of 2019, I knew I wasn't living right. My During undergrad and college, I didn't start off on great terms. I was in some bad things in a bad situation. I wasn't in a good spot in life, and I wasn't living right. I was doing a lot of things, making a lot of mistakes. But at the end of 2019, I knew I needed to change, and I prayed for the first time in a long time, and I said, "Lord, bring me back to church and bring me back to you." And a couple of days after 2020 had began, I started a new job at a gym. And the first night I was there, I met somebody by the name of Noah. Noah invited me to church that day, and once he did, I felt the Holy Spirit bring me back. And I started going to Experience Church in Tallahassee, Florida. Once that happened, COVID hit, and I was kind of in a weird spot. Through that, I had just walked on at Florida State. It was my lifelong dream to play football at Florida State. I'd overcome a lot of difficulties. My freshman year, I played at a small school. I didn't have offers coming out of high school. I wasn't the most athletic. I was strong. I was gifted, but I knew I had to work harder. And as I continued to work, the Lord kept just pushing me, and the Lord kept challenging me with different circumstances and difficulties. As my faith journey continued, and throughout the years, I just continued to work. I worked at a gym, and I worked at a bar to make some extra money on the side. I worked for 2 years straight, and eventually I had an opportunity to walk on at Florida State. Now in 2019, I was denied after a tryout. I had dominated, and I had done well. And through that, I was actually at community college. I was actually denied into Florida State 4 times, but I knew to keep pushing, and I knew to keep persevering. And through that time, there was some dark times and challenges, but I really learned that how to become, my full self and my full potential. I knew God had something greater for me. In 2020, I had another tryout right before COVID, and God kind of opened a lot of doors right when I gave my life and rededicated my life back to Him. I showed up to a tryout. I dominated the tryout. I ran back-to-back 4.40s. And through the last 2 years, I really coached myself on training, and I always loved the gym, and I taught myself on basic strength conditioning. That's where a lot of my knowledge comes from, is from just self-improvement, of self-knowledge and self-dedication. After I walked on at Florida State, COVID had hit. We went home for summer, and my faith kind of drifted again. At the end of COVID, we were allowed back, and it was a tough year. It was a challenging year. It was my first year at Florida State. I was still making mistakes and still kind of living in the world. I didn't see the field that year, and I was happy I was at Florida State, but I knew I needed an extra edge. Kind of towards the end of that year, my faith began to drift some more. I made excuses. I wasn't really challenging myself. I was in a toxic relationship. I was kind of, just kind of living in a lukewarm life. At the end of 2020, I knew I needed to take the next step. 2021, I was in a better spot. I continued to strive and work harder than I ever had before. I kind of tuned my life out from the world, and I just worked. I deleted all my socials, and I just continued to just be the best person I could. The Lord took away a lot in my life and allowed me to prosper in a way that He wanted to. In spring of 2021, I had a concussion during spring practice. I missed the spring game that year, and I was ultimately really crushed. I came back for summer workouts. I just continued to dominate. And as I dominated workouts, going into fall camp, I was very confident I was going to see the field. I knew my time was coming. And as I entered fall camp, I just worked my way up the depth chart. Each week they would post the depth chart on special teams, and I went from last on the depth chart to I was a number 2 on all special teams, and I was working my way up. And as I worked my way up, going into the first game, I knew I wouldn't see the field, but I was okay with that and just kept my head down and just kept working. I still battled with a lot of just injuries along the way, and then during week 2, I suffered another concussion. This one was a little more severe. This was one of the biggest pain points in my life. I struggled deeply with a lot of the symptoms. Through that time, it was very hard. I went about 4 weeks of just not being able to sleep. I couldn't drive. I was depressed. I was hurt. I had just a lot going on at that time, and I was very stressed. I was anxious. I was worried. I didn't know where my life was going. I couldn't even process things. And towards the end of that 4 weeks, my symptoms weren't going away. They were honestly felt like they were getting worse. So the doctor and I had talked, and we agreed that it was best to step away from the game. And it was a hard moment. I had worked so hard to get to where I was, but as the Lord did that, He opened another door. Actually, I went to talked to my defensive coordinator and coach at the time. I was a little nervous. I was scared. And I went into the staff room and I told them, I said, I'm going to step away from football, but I still wanted to be a part of the team. And he told me to take a week for myself, go live life, be a kid, and then if you want to be here, come back next week and I have a job for you. So I came back the next week, that Sunday, and he brought me on as a signal caller for the defense. So the team was very gracious to me. They let me continue workouts, so I worked out with the team, but during practice I was a signal caller. And this is where I fell in love with coaching. And this is where I knew God opened a new door. At the end of that season, I graduated, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was kind of in a confused spot, and I didn't really know where life was going. I sat on my couch for about 3 weeks. Just woke up every day. I went to the gym and went home and sat on the couch. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I called my strength coach and I said, hey, I don't know what to do with my life. And he told me, he goes, hey, come work for me till you figure it out. And I fell in love with it. I showed up the next day. It was a Monday, end of January, and I fell in love with strength conditioning. And my whole life had always been circled around gyms and circled around strength conditioning. My degree wasn't in any exercise science, but I was very knowledgeable with the subject, and it was one of my favorite subjects. And as 2022 began, a lot of doors opened up for my life. I interned at Florida State on the strength staff. And as I interned, I just grew in knowledge and continued to fall more in love with it. My first job was presented to me at Northern Arizona University. And in 2022, it was when I really realized I had an impact for coaching. It was when my faith really grew. I really started to build a deeper bond with God and my relationship with Him. And I was put in a season where I was alone. I didn't really know many people, and I moved out to Arizona and took the risk of faith. I fell in love with coaching even more, and it was a beautiful process. As that coaching happened, it was my first time with a lot of responsibility. So I learned a lot about myself. My ego was checked. My heart was checked. There was a lot of different things that was exposed about me in a good way, especially my coaching flaws. I had cross country and tennis, which were two amazing teams, and I learned so much, and it put me in an uncomfortable position to really learn about other people. I had athletes from all over the world that spoke different languages and had different cultures, so I learned how to speak with people, and ultimately I really loved spending time with them because it gave me an opportunity to impact them and an opportunity to show them that a little bit of my testimony and a little bit of what I love to do. And it gave me an opportunity to steward them towards Jesus just a little bit. And that was an awesome moment. And then in 2023, that's when it really changed for me. 2023 was when I had a lot of pain points. 2023, I kind of came into that year. I was in a new relationship. And as I started that relationship, I knew where I wanted it to be. But as a man, I didn't steward it well. And I got to a point where God gave me a lot of great things in life, and He blessed me with a lot of great things. Towards April of 23 is when I got a job at Boise State University. And once I got that job at Boise State, a lot began to shift for me. I acted as if God existed for me and my dreams and my goals. I quit really praying. I wasn't really stewarding well with what I had. And then kind of that summer of 23, after being in Boise for not very long, maybe a month and a half, I made a lot of mistakes, and I began to realize I had a lot of things that I needed to work on and a lot of things that I needed to correct. I was really exposed to a lot of my sin and a lot of my hurt. I realized I wasn't living life. Towards the end of that summer, my relationship had ended, and I realized I needed to change. And as I began to change, a lot of my flaws became exposed. I really got plugged in with a church and a Bible study who really poured into me. And as I was getting poured into, is when my faith began to get deeper. And this is when the vision became alive. And this is when the spiritual conditioning brand became a thought and a vision. And I'll never forget the day. And it was like the Lord just downloaded this onto my heart. It was like He spoke it to me audibly. And it was a Thursday We were in the developmental lift group at 6:30 a.m. We were playing San Jose State. I'll never forget it. And I was just walking down the aisle. I can't tell you what the lift was. I wasn't paying attention because all I could hear was God's voice for about 30 minutes. And I was walking down the aisle, and I felt God tell me, hey, I want you to write a devotional book. And with it, there's going to be workouts tailored to it. But I don't want this to be your average devotional book. I want this to be convicting, and I want it to be hard. And what I learned through that was I always treated God as if he existed for me and my goals and my dreams. And a lot of people around me, I felt, were living the same life. We were living this lukewarm Christian life. And especially in this generation, as we want comfort. Well, Christianity doesn't call you to comfort. God doesn't call you to comfort. When you're called to pick up your cross, you're not called to comfort. You're called to conviction, and you're called to challenges. And as I realized that, my heart really shifted. But through that, and through God speaking to me and developing this with me, the thoughts and the vision really became to life. So I went home and I wrote down everything God said to me. And I thought, this is perfect. I had 21 different topics to speak about. And it takes 21 days to create a habit. So I want to completely shift people to have the mindset of conditioning themselves spiritually the same way they do mentally and physically. And when I had that conviction, I realized we live in a world where it's all about grind, it's all about grit, it's all about hard work and having this mindset of we gotta be unstoppable, which is great. And there's great traits to that. And I'm all for it. But what I realized was none of us really do that spiritually. Nobody really does it spiritually. Nobody really challenges themselves spiritually. Nobody really pushes themselves spiritually. And I don't talk about challenging yourself like a 30-day Bible reading plan or a 30 days of prayer. I'm talking about saying challenging prayers like, Lord, convict me of my sin. Reveal to me where I'm wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. Lord, put me in uncomfortable positions to forgive other people. Lord, expose to me my flaws. Show me where I can go closer to you. And as I started writing these ideas down, I realized and I felt so convicted that I'm not challenging myself spiritually. And I'm a firm believer that you will never unlock your full potential until you challenge yourself spiritually. And every man inside of them has this potential that they have to unlock. And you will never do it until you challenge yourself spiritually. That comes with conquering sin. It comes with conquering what your challenges and what you're scared of, and what you don't confront, you will never conquer. And what you can't define, you can't confront. So this devotional book that I've written was all about conquering these things. All right, we say we want to be a man, we say we want to be tough, we say we want to be about all the grind and grit and hard work and read all these books and listen to all these podcasts and try to seek worldly wisdom, but we're not in our word, right? We're not going to church. We're not pouring into other people, and we exist as if God exists for me. My devotionals are all about me. My dreams are all about me. It's all about me, 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 me. Well, the hard reality and the hard truth is, all right, God does not exist for us. We exist for him. Now, he plants visions and dreams on your life, all right, but it's your job to, one, steward it well, and two, all right, give it back to him. All right, your life is not about you. It's about giving everything and glorifying him. So through that, it's a very convicting devotional book, and it's something I'm very passionate about, and it's something that through my testimony, I thought that when I was being challenged and when things were not going well in my life, well, I had this mindset that I had to read all these books, and I was reading 2 or 3 books a month. And I thought that I had to listen to all these podcasts, and I would go on walks for hours a day and listen to these podcasts, talk about this growth and mindset and overcoming these things. But what I realized was I needed Jesus. And I think every man gets to that point where we search for wisdom and we search for these things, which is fine and it's great. But if self is the problem, self can't be the solution. You can't look for worldly help without seeking Jesus. And when I started to really dive deep in my faith into the Bible was when I really realized that this information, this book is the instruction manual for life that has everything you need in it. Now, it's okay to read self-help books. I still read some every once in a while, all right? But you can read all these things about ego. You can read all these things about overcoming challenges and difficulties. But until you face them in your life, you'll never change. And part of this book is to develop you spiritually, but also putting you in positions to pray challenging prayers, because God honors you when you honor him. And a God-honoring prayer is a selfless prayer when you're asking God to help you And when you're asking God to put you in positions to overcome things and to expose your sin and be knowledgeable of your sin to overcome these things, and God's going to honor that. And He's going to show that to you. And it should be challenging. It should be convicting. And people talk all the time, especially in the industry that I'm in, if it's all about challenging yourself and want to do all these hard workouts. Well, go challenge yourself spiritually. If you think you're a man, you think you can go through all these things, challenge yourself spiritually. And as I did, and as I wrote this book, I took myself through it. And 2024 was when life really came crashing down. As I was going and deepening my faith walk, my fear, my ego, my sin became exposed right in front of me. And starting especially that January to about April, my ego went through the roof. Something changed in me. And as I prayed these prayers, my sin was deeply exposed. I had a lot of problems. I had I was lusting. I was really being lazy in my work. I didn't steward well with what God had given me. I thought life was about me. I was incredibly selfish, and I had a massive ego. I thought because I was at a big time university and doing something I loved and had a beautiful apartment in a great city, that I was just the greatest thing on earth. And as I prayed these prayers, the Lord changed my heart. And my heart became just convicted, and it was wrung out like a dirty, wet rag of sin. And come about late April, or early April, I was in a spot, and I thought I was just on top of the world. I thought I was invincible. And this is when the pain points really hit. Was I was in the weight room one day just doing a typical routine workout, and I thought I could just load weight up on a bar. And I went on a bench press one day, and I started repping out weights, and I had a lot of load on the bar, probably heavier than what I should have been doing. And I hit a good set, and I thought, my ego was getting higher and higher and higher. Well, the next set, I loaded more up on the bar, and as soon as I went down, I hit about 4 reps. On my 5th rep, pow, my pec popped, had a full rupture of my left pec. And then that was the first, other than concussions, the first severe injury I ever had. And as someone who loves training and who loves hard work and who loves challenging themselves physically, when that was taken away from me, I was put in a very deep and dark spot. And especially after all of my sin had been exposed. And then about 10 days later, the day after my birthday, I had realized, I had been called into an office, and I realized I had made a couple of mistakes in the past. And it was a big miscommunication, but it was something that I didn't steward well with. And ultimately, it had cost me my job. And I had essentially been let go at Boise State. This was a crushing moment. I'm fresh off surgery a couple weeks ago, and I just lost my job. And it was an amazing job. And through that process, I had burned bridges. And then I was put in a place where I felt as if God stripped everything from me and took away all my bad branches. I started reading through John 15, and I realized, okay, God strips every bad branch that bears bad fruit. And I realized I was bearing a lot of bad fruit in my life. So after that, I sat for about a month in Boise, and I sat there in the whole month of May. And I cried, I prayed, I was lonely, I was depressed. My ego was just completely suffocated from me. Felt like my heart was ripped out. I felt like I just was just stripped of everything. And I made the decision I was going to go home, and then I was just going to trust God. And as I went home, the Lord continued to put me in positions to understand, all right, the importance of obedience to Him and stewarding well with what He blesses me with. And I was given an opportunity to work for a foundation. It was the Josh Heupel Foundation. He's the head football coach of Tennessee. And I had a former coach who was working for his foundation, and they go all over Oklahoma and Texas. And they go into very less fortunate areas, and they host football camps for kids. And as I became a part of this, I realized the value of life and how fortunate I was. And it put me in a place where it really humbled me. And I learned to become just a better person, ultimately a better coach. That really, bigger is not better. Better is better. And just because you're at a big time school, right, just because you have a status, none of it makes you significant. And when I started coaching these kids, I realized, it made me be thankful and appreciative for coaching again, because anybody can coach, big time athletes, but coaching smaller youth individuals who don't come from anything and they don't know where the next meal is coming from put me in a place of a new perspective. I was out there for a couple weeks, and I came back home, and I had zero clue what was next, but I had 1 month to figure it out of where I was going to go. And I had a friend of mine who I was going back and forth, and a couple months prior, I had fasted. And when I was fasting, there was one verse that stood out to me, and it was in Matthew chapter 8, and he said, knock and the door will be answered to you, seek and you will find. And I was a little upset with that verse because it made me in a position, made me think I had to be in a position where I had to work, which is where God wanted me to be. And I'd reach out to every contact within the next couple months, and I had no opportunity. But I had one friend who was out of strength conditioning, and he and I were talking back and forth one day, and I was telling him my story, and he said, "Hey, I have a friend. He works in South Carolina, and he did a speech a couple years ago, and he's very similar to you in as far as mindset and his journey, and I want you to watch it." So he sent me a video, and I watched it one day, and I didn't really think much of it. I enjoyed it. And then a couple of days later, I went for another walk, and I just listened to it again. And I listened to his voice, and I listened to what he was saying, and I texted my friend back and said, "Hey, I don't want anything from him, but I do want to talk to him. I just want to get his advice and peace of mind." And that man was Luke Day, University of South Carolina. And I called him one afternoon, and we talked for about an hour, and he really changed my perspective on what the business was. And he invited me up to a workout in mid-July. So I drove up to Columbia, South Carolina. I spent the day with him, got to watch their workouts. And at the end of the workout, he said, don't go anywhere else. He goes, come here. He goes, figure it out. He said, I can't promise you much, but I can promise you an opportunity to come here. So I said, okay, well, I need two things to happen. I need a place to live, and I need a side job. And so I went home, I prayed about it, and I was going to go to another school, but the Lord just really tugged my heart to say, hey, I want you to go to South Carolina. So I prayed. And within 24 hours, I found a place to live, and the Lord gave me a side job. And I worked at a company called Sorenex Exercise Equipment. And their company was very gracious, and they're just an outstanding company that's faith-based, that really poured into me and really gave me a new perspective to what life is as a human and as an individual and from a business standpoint. And then University of South Carolina was a unique experience. And each day went by, I was surrounded by men who had all had similar struggles and hurts as me. And as I continued to be around them, they uplifted me and poured into me. And this was the first time I was really poured into by the industry, and I felt like I was loved, and I felt like I had a home and a place. And they gave me a new perspective as to what it was. And what I realized was I was trying to be somebody, and I pretended to be a certain coach, which is why I became so selfish and self-centered. And I realized it's impossible to keep up with who you pretend to be. And this season of life, I was planted, and the Lord really just bloomed me. He allowed me to overcome a lot of problems I had. He taught me what it was to be selfless. He taught me what it meant to love. And I was known for not liking anyone. I hated everyone, but I was put in a place where my heart was wrung out. And the Lord showed me what it was to really love people. And through that, I really developed to my true potential spiritually as well. And I tuned life out, and I trusted God. And the Lord really just developed me and challenged me spiritually. And I became the man who I knew I needed to become. Entering 2025, I knew my time at South Carolina was coming to an end. A couple weeks into 2025, the coach who I'd worked for in Northern Arizona was now at Ohio University. They had a position open, and he was a man that I would love to work for again. And I took that opportunity and ran with it, and I felt the Lord call me there. Well, a couple weeks into it, there was a lot of miscommunication. There was a lot of things going on that ultimately led me to a delay in pay. And so I knew I needed to act quick. I didn't want to leave Ohio, so I got a side job. While I was at the side job, I worked at Tractor Supply. It was the only place in Athens, Ohio that was hiring where I could get hired the next day. So as I worked at Tractor Supply and stepped away from football was when this vision of spiritual conditioning really came to life. And the first day, I felt like, there was something in me that was more. And I had done all this growth on myself and all this work on myself, but there was something in me that I knew that I have more to give to the world than working at Tractor Supply. And there's nothing against Tractor Supply, but I knew that God had something for my life that I needed to give to the world. So each day I was at Tractor Supply, God gave me a new vision for what I wanted this to be. And as each day went along, I realized, okay, there's something here. So I wrote down my visions. And this is how this brand developed. And this is what I see the vision of the future. And this is part of my testimony to help change other men. First is the 21-day devotional book. This 21-day devotional book is not like any other devotional book. It's challenging, it's convicting. There's not a lot of grace, but it's all about becoming who you need to become to wring out your heart and then change your life. This is the first step. After that, there was the one-on-one coaching and mentorship. I didn't know what I wanted that to look like, so I started asking around for people who were very successful with online coaching. And the Lord led me into the right direction to a former athlete who I had actually coached before, and I had reached out to him, and he and I had talked. And as we began to talk, this vision really began to come to life. And as this came to life, I got another vision, and I want to give a platform to athletes, to coaches, to businessmen, not a podcast, but a platform to share your testimony. Everybody knows who you are as an athlete, right? Everybody knows the challenging story you overcame. Everyone knows how you became this head coach, or your struggle, right? But I want to give athletes and coaches and businessmen a platform to share your raw testimony. What does God mean to you, right? What are those challenges in your spiritual journey, right? That's going to change the world. Everyone has a testimony, and everyone has something in them that's going to help inspire something in someone else spiritually. Your testimony is the most impactful thing that you have in your life. So I started that video in Phoenix, Arizona, where my coaching journey began. Now here we are in Tampa Bay, Florida, starting my business, Spiritual Conditioning. And I went into a little bit of the vision, but now I want to talk about how this vision has started. Because as this vision has started, I've stepped out in faith and built it. I have a 21-day devotional book released on Amazon right now. Type in Marshall Hilaman, Spiritual Conditioning. The book will change your life. It's already surpassed over 100 sales in the first week. College teams and coaches and players are already getting their hands on this, and God is doing an amazing work. It is a 21-day devotional designed to convict you, challenge you, and change you. And if you say you are about a challenge and you love change and you want to be pushed, this is the book for you, but it's going to do it in your faith. It's going to condition your spirit and sanctify your flesh so that you can become like Christ and walk like Christ. I did not play around when I wrote this book. It is a challenging read, but it will put you in the best position possible to receive Christ. Not only that, but my men's program has also started. I've had over 7 ex-athletes come in this program. Some of them are almost on their last weeks. Some of them are still going through it. But the biggest thing I've noticed through this program is their heart posture change. From the time they start, a lot of men have a lot of struggles, a lot of questions, and a lot of doubts. By the time they get to week 3, week 4, week 6, their lives are completely changed. And they're not even done. It is a 13-week program. You get 13 weeks worth of workouts from a real strength conditioning coach. I've had experiences to work under some of the best strength conditioning coaches in America. And this program is proven to have drastic results to your body, physically, how you feel, how you look, and mentally how you push yourself. These testimonies will come out very soon, and I'm super excited for it. You also get a diet program. So the diet program is a learning and teaching experience. And what I do is I take all of your information that you need and the goals that you want to accomplish, and I put it on a spreadsheet. And what I do is you download MyFitnessPal. I give you the macros that you need to hit each day. I also give you the foods that you need to select. It is a strict diet program, but I will give you what you need to accomplish and the goals that you want to accomplish, and I will help you achieve that. But what I do is I use it as a learning experience, and I allow you to pick your foods as long as it fits the macros that you need to hit, and I teach you how to count those macros. Now, through the faith-based portion, I use School, SKOOL. And through School, there's 13 different modules. It's like something if you've ever heard of Canvas or Blackboard. And through that School, I now teach individuals what you do every single day. You get one reading. Then you get a video of me breaking down that reading. And then on top of that, I give you now a sermon or a podcast you'll watch on your own that further describes that subject, just so you have more resources. There's over 100 videos of me teaching in the School. There's over 100 written devotionals written by me. Each day has a devotional, scriptures to read, a conviction check, a truth principle, practical application, as well as questions to answer. Now, these questions are shared on a Google Doc with me, and what we'll do is each week, once a week, we will sit down and we'll go through all these questions together where I hold you accountable. On top of that, there's also an accountability sheet. I know you might be asking, how do you hold people accountable? Well, I write down your 10 goals that you want to accomplish, and you have a checkbox every single day you have to hit once you do it. Now, I get it. You might miss a day. Life happens.
But if it gets to a point where we're missing a lot of things, I'm going to be on you about it. And that's where I come in as a coach, someone who's going to hold you accountable and hold you to an elite standard. Now, understand this. Poor standards are offended by excellence because it exposes your excuses. This program will eliminate all excuses that you have because I'm going to put you in the best position possible to achieve excellence. And I want excellence for you. I want excellence for your life. I want to develop you as a man. This program was developed out of questions that I had and the hurts that I had for my life. And a year and a half ago, I had so many questions. How do I lead with integrity? How do I prepare to be a husband? How do I lead people at my job? How do I tithe? I even have an entire business section on how to tithe, how to properly steward your money, how to give, what to do with your money from a biblical perspective. I even have it on nutrition, why we eat the things that we eat, why don't we drink alcohol? And I use it as a learning experience as well. And these are all questions that I've had for so long, and I developed this program for the men out there who hurt. And I know there's men out there watching this. If you are hurting, come find me. Work with someone who has a proven track record of training high-level athletes and changing their bodies, who is going to hold you accountable and who is going to love you, show you grace, but also challenge you. I want to put you in challenging places that I was once challenged from other people, to go step out of my faith and to grow and to love people and to seek people, but also seek Jesus with all that I have, because your relationship with Jesus is the most important thing you have in your life. And that is how this program has come to fruition. But I know that there's somebody out there watching this. If this is you, come find me. Let's talk, because I want to see you succeed, not only physically. All right, I want to see you hit your physical goals, but I want you to develop into the man that God has called you to be. And that is why I developed this program. That is why I'm so passionate about it. I'm passionate about developing men. And when God called me to this, I obeyed it. And there are so many men that are coming into this program and their lives are changing in 90 days or less. But the best part is you get the school for life and you get me for life. Once you go through it, you have me as a mentor for the rest of your life, and I'm here to help you achieve what you want. Thank you so much for watching this video. God is doing some amazing things right now. If you have any questions, follow me on Instagram at Spiritual Conditioning, or the Facebook page at Spiritual Conditioning. Like, comment, share this YouTube video. I'm so excited for what God is doing with the brand of Spiritual Conditioning. Here soon, the YouTube channel will be set up. I talked about that at the end of the video in Arizona. That YouTube channel will start when I interview coaches and players and we talk about their testimony. I have numerous coaches and players, especially at the NFL level, who are excited to be on this. I've already reached out to a couple, so it will be starting here soon. I am super excited to let their testimonies be a light to this world. But if you, any men, if you have any questions, come find me. Message me on Instagram, email me, find me on the website, spiritualconditioning.fit, or email me at marshall@spiritualconditioning.info. Thank you for watching this video. God bless you all.